This is Arkansas Post National Memorial in Arkansas. Let's go take a look inside the visitor center. These are replicas of Quapaw pottery. This is an original Quapaw pottery pieced back together. The fur trade was very important at Arkansas Post. And these were used to stretch beaver pelts. Pelts had to be compressed into bales for shipment to New Orleans. And this is an original dugout canoe. A model of a keelboat that was used for trade down the Arkansas River and Mississippi River. This is a model of a flatboat. Flat-bottomed model of a Union gunboat. That was the type that fired on Arkansas Post and destroyed the village in 1863. Sidewheel Steamboat ruled the Mississippi River during the 19th century. The stern-wheeler steamboat was very important in the carrying of large cargoes up and down the Mississippi River. Some nails and other iron implements that were excavated from the Arkansas Post. The Post of Arkansas. So, here on the Grand Prairie you tread on, soil laid down over the centuries as the mighty Mississippi and Arkansas rivers brought down their precious cargoes of silt from the northern uplands. The footprints of many were pressed into this earth. Some merely passed this way, others stayed. Their paths crossed at the Arkansas Post. Indians, Europeans, and Americans all walked here. Explorers and soldiers, priests, outlaws, traders, trappers. They came as wayfarers or as new colonists seeking new homes and lives. The French period, the original French period. The region of France authorized a settlement at the Post of Arkansas in 1722. These early settlers were on good terms with the Quapaw Indians, who exhibited a great spirit of friendliness and hospitality toward the French. Cotton was introduced in 1740. In 1751, the settlement was strengthened. The French government sent a number of girls as wives for the settlers with a dowry of a cow and a calf, a cock and 5 hens, gun and ammunition, axe and hoe, and a supply of garden seed. What a deal. So that was at the time of the wars between France and England, which resulted in the 7 Years' War, which was the French and Indian War that decade. So in regard to the very first post at Arkansas Post, the one that was established by Henry de Tonty, he was a lieutenant of Robert Cavalier Sieur de la Salle, who had claimed this territory for France. Tonty's post was on the banks of the Arkansas River. The exact site is unknown, but is in this vicinity. He called it the Post to Arkansas. And after the Arkansas Quapaw Indians with whom he had traded, the small post survived 14 years, strengthening France's claim to the lower Mississippi River. Okay, Arkansas Post under Spain. In 1763, the Post of Arkansas became Spanish territory when, by the Treaty of Paris, the French king ceded Louisiana to Spain. For several years after the transfer, French officers and soldiers remained at Arkansas Post. In 1771, the first Spanish commandant, Ferdinando de Leiva, arrived. The civilian population increased under the Spanish. The Quapaw Indians remained as loyal to their new allies as they had been to the French. Spain ceded Louisiana to the French Republic by a secret treaty in 1800. Now Fort Carlos actually stood in the water in front of us, but over the centuries got washed away. And this display is how the Spanish used to construct their forts during the 18th century with spiked wooden posts, and probably the slits were for guns to fire out of. Now, during the American Revolution, British partisans led by James Colbert raided the Spanish village and fort here. It was one of the last engagements of the American Revolution, and the only one in Arkansas. It's known as the Colbert Raid, April 17th, 1783. And of course, Spain was an ally of the United States. And after 6 hours of a futile attack, Colbert sent a hostage, Dona de Villers, to the fort, Fort Carlos, with a note demanding surrender. But Captain Dubrul, he refused to surrender to Colbert. So the counterattack. Under Captain Dubrul's orders, Sergeant Pastor and 13 men threw open the gate of the fort, gave the war whoop, and charged the raiders. Colbert and his partisans, they fell back and retreated. So Colbert's men, they fled downstream, taking whatever hostages they had with them. Okay, the Republican French era. When Napoleon I became Emperor of France in 1799, he envisioned the establishment of a vast French Empire in America. He began in 1800 when he won control of the Louisiana from Spain. Constant threat of war with England soon forced him to abandon his plans. In late 1803, the negotiations were consummated between France and the United States, which culminated in the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. Thus ended the long struggle by European powers to dominate the Mississippi Valley and opened the way to the United States to go from Atlantic coast to Pacific coast. Okay, the American era. The land passed from France to the United States in 1803 with the Louisiana Purchase. Arkansas then became a territory on March 2nd, 1819. The post of Arkansas was designated the capital of the Arkansas Territory. The Territorial Secretary Robert Crittenden, acting in the absence of Governor James Miller, presided at the Territory's first legislature on July 28th of that year here in Arkansas Post. The first issue of the Arkansas Gazette was published at the Post on November 20th, 1819. And this in front of us is the site of the American town site, which was from 1805 to 1840, and this served as the capital of the Arkansas Territory from 1819 to 1821, when it was eventually moved to Little Rock. So what happened to the town? The Civil War forced river traffic to cease, and the resulting economic collapse. Most residents left. Bombardment by Union gunboats in 1863 destroyed much of the village, and it never recovered after the war. And this was the site of the cotton gin and press. From his home, Colonel Frederick Notrieb operated a gin that removed seed and raw cotton, and machinery that compressed cotton into bales for the market. This is the site of Montgomery's Tavern. It was operated by William Montgomery. In February 1820, the Arkansas General Assembly rented 2 rooms in the tavern and conducted the first meetings of the territorial government of Arkansas. James J. Audubon, the famed naturalist, visited the tavern in 1820. This is the site of the trading factory. In 1805, the United States government established a trading house at Arkansas Post. The government trader or factor exchanged store goods for deerskins, bearskins, beaver pelts, hides, and oil brought in by Indians and other traders. The well is one of the only remaining structures left from the Arkansas Post town site. And this is the house site of Colonel Frederick Notrebe. He was born in France in 1780, and he immigrated to America, settled at Arkansas Post in 1811. And this is the site of his house, and the only thing that remains is this brick cistern. He lived here for 40 years, and he was the most prosperous entrepreneur in the town. This is the site of the Arkansas State Bank. It was a branch of the Bank of the State of Arkansas, built in 1840 to 1841. It closed in 1843 as the economy of Arkansas Post declined. For 20 years thereafter, the two-story brick building was used only occasionally. During the Battle of Arkansas Post in 1863, the old bank building served as a hospital before Union gunboats destroyed it. It's a little bit of the foundation and the marker that says site of the State Bank. This stone was taken from the ruins of the old bank. The Southern Confederacy. Arkansas joined the Southern Confederacy on May 6, 1861. The following year, a fort was built at the Arkansas Post to control the Arkansas River, the North's most feasible route of invasion. This garrison, called Fort Heineman under Brigadier General T.J. Churchill, consisted of about 5,000 men. On January 10, 1863, Union Major General John A. McClernand arrived with 9 gunboats and 30,000 men. Unable to withstand the heavy bombardment and land assaults that followed, the Confederate forces surrendered to the Union after a bloody 2-day battle. That would be the Battle of Arkansas Post. So during the Battle of Arkansas Post, 9 Union gunboats and ironclads fired on the fort. They held their fire within 100 feet of the fort and aimed right into the mouths of the Confederate fort's cannon, and just blew it to smithereens. The Confederates were surrounded, and they were outnumbered 6-1. They were forced to surrender. 38,000 reasons Confederates had a reason to fight. Half the Yankees in the West were coming, so said a Confederate scout. Why did the Union gunboats destroy Arkansas Post? Well, 4 guns opened up on the gunboats and 1,000 rifles from pits. And this is an example of a Confederate rifle pit. It's kind of shallow right now. You can see a little bit of indentation, a couple of feet into the ground. And there's a second one right here. And a third one where the tree has grown into it.